Welcome back to sleep revenge. The smell hit me first. It wasn't the smell of fresh oranges or the sweet scent of berries that usually greets a Saturday morning. It was sharp, metallic, and wrong. It was the scent of copper mixed with something bitter, something that stung the back of your throat the moment it hit the air. My husband, Ethan, walked into our bedroom with a smile stretched too wide across his face, balancing a wooden tray with breakfast in bed like he was auditioning for the title of Husband of the Year. There was a plate of perfectly toasted bread, a small vase with a single rose, and 2 tall glasses of freshly squeezed juice. But that juice wasn't right. The liquid inside was slightly darker than usual, opaque, almost heavy-looking. And the moment he handed it to me, something in my chest tightened. It wasn't gratitude, it wasn't surprise, it was instinct, pure, primal instinct. I am Ava. I am 32 years old. I have been married to Ethan for 6 years. I am a mother to a beautiful 3-year-old boy who is currently staying at my mother's house for the weekend. And lately, I have become a woman who sleeps beside a stranger. Ethan used to be the kind of man who forgot my birthday, forgot our anniversary, and forgot to even ask how my day was. He was the man who would come home late, eat dinner in silence, and fall asleep with his back turned to me. And then, out of nowhere, for the last month there had been freshly squeezed juice, breakfast in bed, soft kisses on my forehead, and compliments that felt like they were read from a script. Something was off. It was too off. It was the kind of sudden kindness that doesn't come from love, but from guilt or worse, from calculation. While he turned to fluff the pillows behind my back, I quietly swapped our glasses. My fingers shook, a subtle tremor I couldn't quite control, as I set his glass at my side and placed mine in front of him. The condensation on the glass made the swap slippery, risky, but adrenaline made my movements sharp. He didn't notice. He was humming, actually humming a tune I didn't recognize, looking out the window like a man who had already planned the rest of the morning, the rest of his life, perhaps. "Drink before it settles," he said cheerfully, turning back to me, lifting his glass, the one I had touched, the one I had just condemned him to drink, and taking a long, deep sip. I watched his throat move as he swallowed. I watched the Adam's apple bob up and down. I watched him smile at me over the rim of the glass, his eyes crinkling in that way that used to make me melt. Now it just made my stomach turn. 5 minutes later, the tray crashed. He had just set the glass down, let out a satisfied sigh, and reached for a piece of toast when it happened. The color drained from his face first. It was a rapid exodus of blood, leaving his skin pale and clammy. He clutched the edge of the bed, his knuckles turning white, his breath stuttering in his chest. "Ava!" he gasped, his voice suddenly an octave higher, thick with rising panic. "Something's wrong." I froze. I just sat there, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs like a trapped bird because I already knew. I knew the moment I smelled that metallic tang. Ethan's hand trembled violently against the blanket, his breathing becoming uneven, ragged, sweat beading along his hairline and dripping down his temples. I kept my expression calm, too calm for a wife watching her husband fall apart in front of her. My face was a mask of marble, but inside, something cold slid into place. Because the moment the smell hit me earlier, my brain had flashed back to last night. He thought I didn't notice him sneaking into the kitchen at 1:00 a.m. He thought I didn't hear the heavy, muffled footsteps on the carpet. He thought I didn't hear the drawer in the kitchen with the "Do Not Touch" label click open. That drawer was for the good silverware, the serving platters we never used. But he wasn't getting silverware. I heard the rustle of a plastic bottle. He thought I didn't catch the faint chemical scent trailing behind him when he slipped back into bed and pretended to be asleep, pulling the covers up to his chin like a child hiding from a monster. I had lain there, eyes closed, breathing rhythmic, listening to his heart hammer against his ribs. I didn't know what he was doing then. I just knew it wasn't right. For months, things had been cracking between us. Slowly at first, like hairline fractures in a windshield. It started with his sudden late nights at the office. Projects that never seemed to end. Client dinners that ran until midnight. Then came the whispered phone calls in the bathroom, the door clicking shut, his voice dropping to a hush that I wasn't supposed to hear. When he came out, he was irritated, snapping at me for the smallest things, a dish left in the sink, a toy on the floor. His irritation at every question I asked was palpable, a wall he built brick by brick. But then, interspersed with the coldness, there were random bursts of kindness that felt rehearsed. A bouquet of flowers on a Tuesday, a text message saying he missed me, and now this breakfast. It was jarring, the oscillation between indifference and smothering affection. Then came the money missing from our joint account. $1,000 here, $500 there. I had asked him about it, and he had waved it off, saying it was for an investment, a surprise. His colleague Lee had asked me at a company picnic a few weeks ago, "How are you doing? Are you feeling better now?" I had looked at her, confused. Better from what? She had looked flustered, her eyes darting to Ethan, who was glaring at her from across the lawn. "Oh, just, the stress, you looked tired." She never explained. And now this juice, with its bitter metallic undertone, sat heavy in the air. Ethan doubled over, a groan tearing from his throat. It was a sound of pure agony. "Ava, call someone, please, it hurts, my stomach." I didn't move. I sat there, the sheets pooled around my waist, the untouched toast on the tray in front of me. Instead of reaching for the phone, I asked quietly, my voice drifting through the tension like smoke, "What exactly did you put in that glass, Ethan?" His eyes flew open in panic. The pain was there, yes, but behind the pain was a sharp, piercing fear. He knew I knew. For a moment he just stared at me, eyes wide, throat bobbing, breath shallow, not the look of a man confused or afraid for his health. No, this was the look of someone whose plan had just detonated in his own hands. The realization that the trap he had set had snapped shut on his own leg. "Ava, it's not what you think," he choked out, clutching his stomach, his body curling in on itself. "That's funny," I said, my voice steady, devoid of the trembling that usually accompanied my fear. "Because I think you tried to poison me." He braced himself on the nightstand, his legs shaking violently, threatening to give out. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath his feet. "It was just supplements," he stammered, sweat dripping from his nose onto the wooden floor. "Something to help you relax. I thought you'd been stressed. I just wanted to help you sleep." "Supplements don't smell like metal, Ethan," I replied, my voice cold. "Supplements don't make you double over in pain 5 minutes after you drink them." His jaw clenched. That old flash of irritation, the real Ethan, finally surfaced through the mask he'd been wearing for months. Even in agony, even facing exposure, his ego couldn't help but flare up. "You always overreact," he muttered, struggling to stand, gripping the bedpost so hard I thought it might snap. "Just call an ambulance. Stop being dramatic." I didn't move. I watched him struggle. I watched the bravado fade as another wave of cramps hit him, bending him in half. While he was unraveling physically, I was piecing together months of warning signs. The insurance policy he insisted we update 3 weeks ago. "For emergencies, Ava, just to be safe." He had sat me down at the dining table, papers spread out, a pen in my hand. He had watched me sign with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. I remembered the sudden attentiveness, the large transfer to an account he denied opening when the bank statement came in. And the message I accidentally saw on his phone 3 nights ago. He had left his phone on the counter while he was in the shower. It buzzed, the screen lit up. A message from Lee, it read, "Once she's gone, everything becomes easier, don't mess this up." I had stared at it, my blood running cold. I didn't have time to process it before he had snatched the phone off the counter, his face twisting into a snarl. "Don't you have any respect for privacy?" he had shouted, slamming the door in my face. But I'd read enough. Ethan's voice broke, pulling me back to the present. "Ava, please, I'm dying." My mind sharpened. This wasn't just panic. This was betrayal finally revealing its skeleton. Ethan staggered backward, hitting the dresser so hard a picture frame crashed to the floor. The glass shattered. It was our wedding photo. The sound echoed through the bedroom like a gunshot. His face twisted, not with pain, but with the realization that the mask he'd worn for months had finally slipped for good. There was no going back to the charade now. "Ava, listen," he gasped, clutching his stomach, sinking to his knees. "Whatever you think you saw, it wasn't about you. You're imagining things." I stepped closer. I towered over him. The message literally said, "Once she's gone." Who else could that possibly mean, Ethan? The dog. His mouth opened, then closed. No excuse came out this time. The silence was deafening. And then the humiliation hit me like a tidal wave. It washed over me, choking me. Every time he'd kissed my cheek lately, every breakfast he'd surprised me with, every moment he'd played the doting husband in front of friends, it was all a lie. All of it rehearsed, scripted, a countdown disguised as kindness. My chest tightened with a nauseating wave of realization. He hadn't fallen out of love with me. He had planned my exit. He was actively trying to erase me. The real breaking point wasn't the poison. It was remembering last week at a family barbecue. We were in his parents' backyard. The sun was shining. Everyone was laughing. I had looked over from the punch bowl to see him pulling Lee aside near the garden shed. He had whispered something to her, and they both glanced at me. They didn't look at me with anger or even with contempt. They looked at me with pity. Pity I didn't understand then. Pity that now made my skin burn. They were looking at a dead woman walking. Ethan's voice cracked, a pitiful sound. "Ava, we can fix this. Just help me. Fix this." I felt my anger settle into something quieter, colder, heavier, because I knew this wasn't the moment I broke. This was the moment I began planning. I watched him slump onto the edge of the bed, gripping the sheets like they were the only thing anchoring him to the world. His breaths came in sharp, frightened bursts, and for a moment, a single fleeting moment, I felt something close to sorrow. Not for him, never for him again, but for the version of me who once loved him blindly. For the girl who walked down the aisle thinking she had found her forever. But sorrow is a luxury betrayal does not allow. I exhaled slowly, letting the storm inside me settle into a still, icy surface. My hands stopped shaking. My heartbeat leveled. A strange, powerful calm flooded in, like my mind had finally clicked into its sharpest, most strategic state. The adrenaline wasn't making me panic, it was making me think. Ethan was still whispering my name, pleading, bargaining with the air. I ignored him. Instead, I replayed everything from the past 6 months with clinical precision. The financial discrepancies, the late-night calls, that insurance policy he insisted on updating for emergencies. The shift from cold detachment to smothering affection. Lee's message. Together, the pieces formed a blueprint, not for his plan, but for mine. If he had prepared for my disappearance, I would prepare for his downfall. A revenge not born from rage, but from clarity. A revenge that wouldn't land me in handcuffs, but would leave him with nothing to his name. "Ethan," I finally said, my voice steady as marble. "I'll help you." His eyes lit up with desperate hope. He didn't realize I meant it in a very different way. He saw his savior. I saw his executioner. I slid my phone off the nightstand as calmly as if I were checking the weather. Ethan watched me with a mix of hope and terror, his breathing shallow, his body trembling. He thought I was calling 911. I wasn't. Instead, I opened the voice recorder app and set the phone gently on the dresser, angled perfectly toward him. I made sure the red recording light was blinking. "Ethan," I said softly, leaning in, "tell me what you took last night. I need to know so the doctors can help you. If you don't tell me exactly what it was, they won't know how to counteract it." His eyes fluttered, panic choking him. I didn't take anything. Ava, please just call." "You were in the kitchen at 1:00 a.m., I murmured, my voice a low hum. "I saw you, the drawer was open. The smell is the same as the juice. Please, if you want me to save you, tell me what you used. Tell me the dosage. Is it lethal? Does it have an antidote? You need to tell me now, or you might not make it to the hospital." He swallowed hard, his eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape but finding none. The pain was winning. The fear of death was louder than the fear of prison. It wasn't supposed to hurt me," he wheezed. It was just enough to make you sleep deeply. That's all. Just enough to make it look natural, like a heart attack in your sleep." My chest tightened, but my face stayed serene. He had just admitted it, premeditated murder. "And Lee," I asked quietly, "what was her role?" His head dropped, his chin hitting his chest. She said we'd both be free, that the money would solve everything. The insurance payout, it was split. We were going to start over." There it was, confession, motive, conspiracy, still recorded, still usable. The sound of his voice, weak and trembling, admitting to plotting my death, was the most terrifying and validating thing I had ever heard. "Okay," I whispered, stepping toward the door. "I'm going to get help." Ethan sagged with relief, his body collapsing sideways onto the mattress. He didn't know I meant help for me, not him. I walked out of the bedroom with Ethan's confession still echoing in the air, the recorder capturing every ragged breath he took. My hands were steady, almost unnervingly so. The woman who used to panic when the Wi-Fi went out was gone. In her place stood someone sharpened by betrayal, someone who had looked into the abyss and decided to build a ladder out of it. I walked downstairs. I didn't call an ambulance. I called my lawyer. "Emergency consult," I said the moment he answered. "Marriage, insurance fraud, attempted harm. I have a confession on tape." He didn't even hesitate. "Come in now, don't talk to anyone else." While Ethan groaned upstairs, his life possibly slipping away, I moved through the house like a ghost. I gathered evidence. I took photos of the juice on the tray, the glass with the residue. I took a photo of the open drawer in the kitchen, the bottle with the chemical residue left inside. I pulled up the bank statements on my laptop and took screenshots. I found the insurance documents he had pressured me to sign and shoved them into my bag. Every puzzle piece he thought I'd never connect was now safely in my possession. Then I grabbed my keys. As I walked toward the front door, I heard him calling my name from the top of the stairs. "Ava, Ava, where are you going? Help is coming, right?" I paused only long enough to say, loud enough for the recorder still running upstairs to catch it, "I'm getting you help, Ethan. The kind you actually deserve." I walked out, closed the door behind me, and locked it. I didn't know if he would be alive when I got back, and for the first time in years, I realized I didn't care. By the time I reached the lawyer's office, the plan was solidified. My lawyer, a man who had seen the worst of humanity, listened to the recording with a grim expression. "This is enough," he said. "Police involvement will be clean. The insurance company will be notified immediately. Lee's role will drag her in as an accomplice. And legally, financially, publicly, Ethan's life will collapse in one synchronized hit." "But there's more," I said, my voice calm. "I want to be there. I want him to see me when he realizes it's over." We drove back to the house together, followed by 2 patrol cars. The police arrived at our house just as I was pulling back into the driveway. There were flashing lights, sirens cutting through the quiet suburban morning. The investigator met me at the curb. "He's still inside." "He was when I left," I said. "He's weak. He might be unconscious." They stormed inside. I followed behind, my lawyer at my side. From the doorway of the master bedroom, I watched Ethan's face when the officers entered. He was lying on the floor now, pale as a sheet, but his eyes were open. They widened when he saw the uniforms. Confusion, then fear, then the sickening realization that this wasn't a rescue. It was an arrest. "Ava," he croaked, eyes widening as the officers lifted him to a stretcher. He looked frantic, his eyes darting from the police to the paramedics to me. You said you were getting help." "I did," I replied calmly, stepping into the room. "Just not the kind you expected." The investigator held up my phone, the recording app still open. "We heard the entire confession. You did the right thing, ma'am." Ethan's face collapsed. The mask was gone. The monster was exposed. "Ava, please, we can fix this. Don't do this to me." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear over the din of the radios and the shuffling of feet. "You were willing to take my life for money, and a woman who sent you one text. You were willing to leave our son without a mother. I'm simply giving you what you earned." As they wheeled him out, he thrashed weakly, the straps of the stretcher holding him down. "Ava, don't let them take everything." I tilted my head, looking at the man I once promised to love forever. "Oh, Ethan, this is only the beginning." Because later that evening, my lawyer filed the civil suit for financial fraud. The insurance company froze his accounts pending investigation. Lee was subpoenaed, her life about to be turned upside down just like his. Ethan realized the final twist. He hadn't just lost me. He had lost the future he tried to steal. I watched the ambulance drive away, the police cars following. The driveway was empty. The house was silent. I closed the front door, exhaled a breath I felt like I had been holding for 6 months, and let the silence settle. It wasn't the silence of a broken home. It was the silence of a storm that had finally passed. I was safe. I was alive, and he was gone. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What's the most chilling red flag you've ever ignored? And of course, subscribe for more stories like this.